Ever wanted a garden full of beautiful roses without breaking the bank? Well, welcome to this explainer. If you've ever looked at a stunning rose bush and just wished you could miraculously duplicate it for your own yard, or maybe you want to multiply your absolute favorite blooms to give away as gifts, you are completely in the right place. Today we're unlocking a biological masterclass on natural rose propagation.
So let's dive right into this because the benefits here are just incredible. By learning to propagate from cuttings, you're essentially learning how to literally clone a plant. You save a massive amount of money, you can create an entire rose garden from a single parent plant, and honestly, there's just a profound joy in gifting a homegrown, thriving rose bush to a friend. And the best part, even if you're a complete beginner, the science behind this is totally straightforward and perfectly accessible.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. Selecting stems, 2. Cutting techniques, 3. Preparing cuttings, 4. Planting methods, 5. Care and maintenance, and 6. Monitoring growth. Let's get right into step 1.
Section 1. Selection of the right rose stems. Timing and thickness for optimal growth.
Okay, selecting the absolute healthiest parent plant stems is where the magic really begins. And you actually have two main windows of opportunity here. If you're working during the active vegetation period, so let's say May to September, you want green cuttings. You're looking for stems that are about the thickness of a pencil, nice and straight, and ideally ones that have just finished flowering, because those have a super high metabolism right now. On the flip side, if you're doing this during the dormant period in late fall or early winter, around November or December, you'll be taking hardwood cuttings. Those are great because they have high mechanical and physiological resistance. But listen, whether you go with green summer cuttings or hardwood winter ones, your primary goal is exactly the same. Find healthy, straight stems that are completely free of pests, black spots, or any kind of damage.
Moving right along to Section 2, perfect cutting techniques. Precision matters for the parent and the clone.
Now for the cut itself. You absolutely must use exceptionally sharp, sterilized tools so you don't crush the delicate wood of the plant. And 45 degrees, that is your golden rule. You always want to make a sharp, clean, 45-degree angle cut. Why? Because that angled cut maximizes the surface area for root development and moisture absorption. It's basically giving the cutting a bigger straw to drink from. Just make sure to make this cut directly above an outward-facing bud on the parent plant and directly below the bottom node of your new cutting.
Section 3. Preparing the cutting. We're talking about redirecting energy to the roots.
So now we prepare the cutting itself, which should be about 12 to 30 centimeters long. And there's a fascinating concept we need to talk about here called rhizogenesis. Basically, it's the biological process of root formation. You see, most commercial roses are grafted onto wild rose rootstocks just to help them grow faster. But a massive benefit of triggering rhizogenesis and growing a rose on its own roots is that it completely eliminates the risk of those wild, unwanted rose shoots sprouting up and totally taking over your garden. You get a pure, resilient clone, the whole shebang.
Okay, so how do we actually trigger this? We follow these rapid-fire preparation steps. First step, remove any flowers or fruit at the top, right down to the first node. Second, strip those bottom leaves completely off. Anything going underground has to be bare. Third, take your scissors and literally cut the remaining upper leaves in half. I know it sounds crazy, but it drastically reduces water loss through transpiration while still letting the plant photosynthesize. Finally, you're going to blind or just remove the bottom buds that will be underground and take your knife to lightly scratch the lower bark. That mechanical stimulation signals the stem's cambium layer to say, hey, stop producing bark and start producing roots.
But right before planting, you've got to give those scratched cells a little chemical push with a rooting stimulator. You can absolutely use commercial rooting powders. These usually contain synthetic hormones like 0.1% IBA. Products like Lactofol are great for this. You just dip the moistened end right in the powder. Or, if you prefer, you can use scientifically proven natural biogenic stimulators. For example, aloe vera gel is amazing. It provides enzymes and incredible cell regeneration properties. Honey acts as a really powerful natural antifungal agent that seals the wound up perfectly. You can even soak your cuttings in water made from crushed young willow branches, which naturally contain salicylic acid and rooting auxins. How cool is that?
Which brings us to Section 4, planting the cuttings. Soil, potatoes, and wet newspapers. Let's look at how all this builds into the actual planting phase, because you actually have a few really fascinating environments to choose from. First is the traditional garden trench. You dig about 15 centimeters deep, line the bottom with sand for crucial drainage, and plant them so about 10 centimeters remain above ground. Then there's the famous potato method. Literally, you just insert the prepared cutting right into a medium-sized, unblemished potato.
and plant the whole thing in the dirt. The potato acts as this perfect moisture and mineral reservoir. Just a heads up though, if you don't remove the potato's eyes, you might actually end up growing a potato plant right alongside your new rows. And finally, the newspaper method. You wrap a bundle of your cuttings in thoroughly wet newspaper, pop them in an unsealed plastic bag to trap the humidity, and keep them in a cool, dark place, right around 15 to 18 degrees Celsius. Now, regardless of the method you pick, if you had X-ray vision and could see beneath the soil, you'd witness the formation of a callus. Right over that tiny little scratch you made on the bark, the plant forms this white, bumpy mass of unorganized cells. It looks kind of weird, but it is the ultimate sign of healing and the direct precursor to your brand new roots.
All right, Section 5, Essential Care and Maintenance, Mastering the Rooting Environment. Once your cuttings are planted, maintaining their microclimate is absolutely vital. The whole game here is managing humidity and avoiding rot. You basically want to create a mini greenhouse effect. So if they're in pots or the garden, cover them up with a clear plastic bag or a glass jar. Give them bright but indirect light. Harsh, direct sunlight? No way. That will literally cook them inside their little greenhouse. Protect them from the wind, too. But most importantly, water very, very sparingly. Overwatering is what causes deadly fungal infections. If you use the honey method in a cup, sometimes literally just a teaspoon of water or a super light misting is enough. And hey, if you ever spot a cutting turning black or moldy, get it out of there immediately so it doesn't infect the rest of the batch.
Speaking of those pesky fungal infections, here is a fantastic expert tip straight from our agricultural sources. Right before dipping your cutting in a stimulator, try rubbing the cutting end with a fresh clove of garlic. Garlic naturally releases allicin, which is a potent, all-natural antibacterial and antifungal agent. It basically acts as an invisible shield against soil rot. It's literally a simple kitchen ingredient protecting your delicate future roses.
Section 6. Monitoring growth. The timeline to success in transplanting. Now that everything is set up, this is where we have to practice some patience. Let's manage our expectations with a realistic biological timeline here. Around week 2, your cuttings are actively forming that white callus tissue we talked about earlier. This is also a great time to do a thorough check for any signs of rot. By week 4, especially if you use the newspaper method, you might actually start to see the earliest delicate white roots beginning to push through that callus. And by week 6, your successful cuttings should have a robust enough root system that they're finally ready to be carefully transplanted into larger pots or directly into their permanent home in the garden.
But if your cuttings are planted deep in the soil, how do you know if week 6 was a success without digging them up and completely ruining them? Well, you use the gentle pull test. Just give the stem a very, very slight upward tug. If it slips right out easily, unfortunately, it hasn't rooted. But if you feel a nice mechanical resistance holding it in place, congratulations, the roots have successfully anchored into the earth.
And finally, our conclusion. Multiplying your garden masterpiece. Let's wrap up this explainer by just reflecting on how empowering this whole process really is. As one of our sources beautifully puts it, when you discover your own propagation method, you turn your garden into a paradise at the lowest cost. Think about that. With just a little bit of patience, a pair of sharp shears, and the right technique, absolutely anyone can become a budget-friendly botanist. You literally have the power to multiply beauty infinitely. So, I want to leave you with a quick question to kick off your own experiments. Which natural rooting stimulator are you going to try first? Are you going to test out the enzymes in aloe vera, the protective seal of honey, or maybe the natural auxins found in willow water? Let us know your plans, and definitely share your rooting results in the comments section below. And just a quick note before we go. The information provided in this explainer is intended for educational purposes. Success can vary based on individual conditions and care. Always consult with gardening professionals if you're ever in doubt. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy propagating!